but for a lot of people,
All right. We're back. It is COMP1004, fall 2016, and it is week 6, part 2 of our broadcast. Taking off? Thanks. Okay, we just finished off talking about our form. We did this little race form, right? And we need to do another one like this, right, for class. We got class and races. Now, one of the questions I had was, hey, are you going to give racial bonuses to your ability score? I'm going to leave that to you, all right? How do you do it? What we want to try and do is we want to modify our abilities, right? And of course, we'd have to have a bigger form that kind of gives us some details about what the races are, because right now we have no idea why would I choose elf over half elf or human? There's no advantage for it right now. We'd have to get the rules, and we probably put some kind of text that describes when I choose the race, what it gives you. That's what I probably would put in there. I'm not going to do that today. Yes.
Go back to the race selected text box code.
Yep.
Just 1 second.
Okay.
Selected index change. Okay.
Yeah. So the selected index change is the default event handler of the list box. Okay.
Don't give me sass.
She caught it from me because I think I caught it from them because they're sick and I got sick too. Oh, okay. You're not sick at all. All right.
But you can't get an extension because you're joking.
I'm not kidding.
Let us do the next piece. So the next piece is I want to update my class. Remember, my class is keeping track of everything, and my class is this character class. My character class is just a class, right? So I have everything is kept track of, my strength, dexterity, and blah blah, whatever. But I want to keep track of my race as well. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to create a new public property. And we're going to make it, instead of an int, we're going to make it a string, which we're going to call race. We're going to keep track of the race of the character. So as soon as the race is set, I want to go to my character class and set the race automatically. Why? If I go back and forth, I want to remember. That's what I want to do, right? So how do I do that? So here's my race form. I want whatever I choose. If I go back and if I come back here again, I don't want the default to be human anymore. I want the default to be whatever I selected, right? So some different logic involved in this. First of all, let's see what happens. Okay, let's see what happens if I save my race, right? How do I do that? So when my race is selected, I'm kind of giving you the pseudocode in my head. When the race is selected, then I want to save the race in my character class object, my character object, okay? So that means when this is selected, that means when this is happening right here, right? When the selected index is changed, right? Then I want to save my class. I want to save it, you know, in my character object, right? Okay, that means, and I got to be very careful here. What I want to do is the following. I want to say something like this. Program.character.race is equal to race selected text box, right? Text. That's the easiest thing to do. So I put it in the race selected text box and I store it in the character race too. But there's a problem. If I go back, because this line here says, hey, set the selected item to human, right? I don't want this. I want to only have this happen if my character race has not been assigned, if it's null, right? So how do I do that? I can do this. I can say, well, if my program.race.character.race, right? If that is equal to null, well, it's right here, null. If it's equal to null, then, and only then, do I want to do this, right? I don't want to do this if it's already been selected. So first, let's check this, right? That's the first thing I want to do. And I'm going to put an else in after this too, right? So I'm checking to see if my program, my race, which is part of my character sheet, has already been, if it's been selected. If it's not been selected, then assign human to the default race list box, right? Let's try this out. So next, human. That means it hasn't been selected. Okay, but what if I select it, like Halfelf, and I go back, and I come forward? It's nothing. That's good. That's what I want to see. Okay, so now what I want to do is, when it's selected, so when this is, if it's not null, so else, I want to say something like this. I want to say my race list box dot selected item is equal to program dot character dot race, right? Whatever that is, assuming that we have that and it exists. We're making assumptions here. Make sense? So if it's null, assign human. If it's not null, if it's already been assigned, take whatever it's been assigned and put it back. So we can always traverse back and forth now, right? And we don't lose the selection. Let's try this out. So okay, not bad. Next, we select Halfelf back. We've got our abilities. We don't regenerate them, right? Or did we? Did I regenerate my abilities? I think I did, right? Next, still Halfelf. If I check Dragonborn, go back, I generate my abilities again. Uh-oh, that's a problem too, right? I go back and my abilities have just changed again, right? Because if you remember what we did with the ability form, right? We did the same thing. We said on load, roll my abilities. If my abilities are null, I don't want to roll my, if they're not null, I don't want them to roll. I don't want you to roll my abilities. Do I have to check for each of my abilities? No, just one, because I know that all of them get checked all at once. So let's check one of my abilities, my strength, for example. So if program.character.strength is equal to null, if that's true, then it's going to be a little bit of an error, right? It says the result of the expression is always false since the value of a type int is never equal to null. How about 0? That is true, right? If it's equal to 0, yes? What do you mean? Oh, so you're saying it's not loading again. Yeah. Let's undo that. What I meant to do is if you're on form loading, that would be working that way. Are you sure? Let me check this out again. I thought it always changed somehow in my mind. Right? 1417, da-da. Next. Back. 1417. Okay. Yeah. Yes. If I loaded it, you're right. Because I'm only hiding it and I'm not loading it for the first time. Thank you for that. I'm not regenerating it. But if I was to on form loading, right? Or on there's different ones. There's on load and there's also on I'm not sure which one of those are. Now you're making me think, which is good. There's another event that I was thinking about when I thought about this one. I meant it was going to be not the load event, but the activated. When the form is activated, it's different than when it's loaded. It's almost like it's been redrawn, right? Like for example, if I was to minimize it and open it up again, it still doesn't load the form, right? Because it's already been loaded, right? But if I activate the form, if I want to change it on activation, that's different. And that's what I was thinking. Thank you for that. All right, so we're able to maintain our character from one form to the other, right? And I want to do the same thing for class. So I got my race, my class. Here's a question I had during break, which was in my race form, right? What about if I select something, I have a picture pop up, right? How can I do that, right? So I have an image, as an example, associated with my whatever I picked, and then the image comes up depending on what I picked. How do I do that? Well, first of all, in order for me to do that, I have to have my images. Right now I have none, right? I'm not going to go and download every one of these images. There's a lot of them, right? But let me show you how to do one. So if I go to project, right? And if I want to do the project properties, under project properties, there's a little tab here called resources. Under resources, I have a pull down, so I can look at strings as well as images. Notice that there are no images in here because I don't have nothing that's part of my, I don't have any images that are part of my resources for my application, right? In order for me to access resources, it has to be part of my, it has to be here in my images. I can't just call up an image with an absolute path, because my absolute path will be different from yours, different from his, and whatever. It's got to be relative path. And the only way to do relative path properly is using the resources that are part of your project, okay? So let's pull down a an image for a kind of a Halfelf, right? So Halfelf, Dungeons & Dragons, D&D. There we go. Halfelf, and we're going to go to images, and we'll see one that we like. Let's say, I don't know, this seems to come up a lot. Let's do this one, right? There we go. This is the image for the Halfelf, right? And we're going to copy this one, copy image or save image as, and we're going to save it somewhere. For now, we're going to just put it up on our desktop, right? Doesn't really matter where. Halfelf Bard, sure, right? We're just going to call it Halfelf, just for our little example here. Halfelf.jpg. There we go. And I want to include this image inside of our form, right? I have to include it in here first. And the way to do that is you can do one of two ways. I can go add resource to this window. You go to project and you go to whatever the project is called, properties in the bottom. And then on the left, there's resources. And then over here, there's an item to pull down, which is images. Okay? Pull down images. Okay? Yeah. I can click add resource, and then I can name a resource. So please enter a name for the new resource. I can do that. If you actually do the pull down, it gives me add existing file, new image. I can create a new image, right? If I go add existing file, which is what I want, I'm going to go to, which is really weird. I want to go to none of this, that's for sure. Look, I don't even have this part, which is really weird. I want to go right up to this PC local, and that's really weird. It must be my VM. It shouldn't be this way. Users, Tom, default desktop. There it is, and Halfelf. So I open the image, and then it loads it in, and it says, "Hey, but this package does not load correctly. You have a problem. Do you want to continue showing this error message?" And it says, "Restart Visual Studio could help to resolve this issue." Yes. There we go, Halfelf. So I've got this Halfelf resource in here, right? Now it says on the right, if you notice on the right, it says persistence linked to compile time. Linked at compile time. So it's actually linked in as an additional resource that's part of your application, okay? So when I click Halfelf, I want this thing to come up, right? But I need to go somewhere. I don't have a container right now where it will appear, right? There's some options. For example, let's say if I clicked on a race, then the whole background image of my RaceForm gets changed. Doesn't matter, right? How do I do that? So RaceForm, click on the RaceForm itself, and if I go to properties, and if I go to background image, notice that it gives me a pull down, and I can choose Halfelf. That's good. But that means that it'll always be Halfelf, right? Background image. What I want is when I change this, my resource, whatever the resource, will be changed as well, right? And I want my background image to point to a resource. So how do I do that programmatically? So when this is changed, that means that when this is happening, right? I can do something like this. I can say something like this got background image, right, which is a property, right, is equal to, and again, it's a resource, right? So my resource, if you want to see what it is it's a system resource. I think it's system.resources. And I think it's image or. I think I remember how to do this from scratch, and I should, but I don't. But I'm accessing a resource, and it's an image resource, right? So I want to access it. I want to make it equal to an image, right? So if I type resource, and I might have to add in a using statement. Source dot RaceForm resource and RaceForm. No, I don't want to generate one. Component resource manager. Okay, let's try that. Component resource. I don't think that's it though. Component resource manager. I don't believe it's this dot. No, that's a class. So this is embarrassing. Using resources and Windows forms. Go. Access resources through Windows form resources. Localizing, I don't want that. I want to image resources, using image resources, Windows forms. Okay. No. This is it, resources, my image. Resources. That's what I did. Resources dot my whatever it is. And it's not coming up because why? That's it. Resources. There it is. Halfelf. Now it can't be this because this wouldn't be it, because remember I can't just specify Halfelf because I want to be able to read what the text value is and put it inside there. So resources.halfelf would be correct if I want to always set the background image to Halfelf, right? But I want to make it so that whatever I type in there is the one that gets accessed, right? So how do I do that? I got to convert this, whatever I'm going to put on the end of this, right, to a text. The text property, I want to convert it to an item here that I'm putting in there, right? So I want to convert it to a resource, right? By the way, did anyone figure this out in their assignment too? No?
Yes.
Who figured it out? You forget how to do it, but so it's the same thing. What you want to do is you want to basically say whatever the race selected text box .text is, right? You want to take that text value and you want to convert it to the resource itself, right? So go back to this, and it's the other way around. So resources.myapp, and so I've done a property, but instead of it being one way, I've got to go the other way. So I want to, and I think it's one of these when I put it in quotation marks, but maybe not. Let's try this out. Resources dot, and I don't think I can do this. Resources dot, and then the name of the resource, right? Or race selected text box text. I can't do this, I'm pretty sure. This would be way too easy for Windows to do, right? But that's what I kind of want to do. I want to take the text from my text box and pull it from the resource, make a link to my resources, and it's something silly like that. Yes.
What if you just put the selected text box from text if it's
Oh, you're talking about making some kind of case statement, a switch.
Yeah.
I could do it that way, yeah, but I'm trying to make it so it's one. I want to do it with one, right? I was thinking that too, but that's just like, then I'd have to switch each one of them. So each of the races would have to be in a switch statement, and I don't want to do that. I want to take the text value, whatever the text value, and convert it into a resource. So if we name the resource properly, right, then like Halfelf, if we name the resource Halfelf properly, then we can put it in here, right? So what we're doing is we're accessing a property, right? So the property would be Halfelf, right? Which is, if you look at it, it's right here, right? Now reference equals is something else. These are the options that we have here. So it says looks up a localized resource of type, right? And this one is reference equals. No, that's not it. and this one is the accesses the resource manager, right? And that's not, I don't think we want this. It could be this. And how about this one? Equals. Oh, I'm sorry. I used a new using statement, which is properties. So using, and I did that automatically. I just did control dot, and I knew I was missing something, where you have the lesson itself, whatever it's called, the project, and then dot properties, and that allows you to access resources, right? So if I really wanted to, I can say, well, if the background, if this is true, then always set it to half-elf. To show you what that is, I can just do this, and I would be kind of skewed, right? Because it may not be the same size as the background, but let's take a look and see what it does anyway. So anytime I select anything, it'll always be half-elf. At the beginning, it's just one thing, but I want to be able to, select it. So next, and there it is, right? So as soon as because it's selected, human selected, or half-orc is selected, it just, puts it in the background, and it duplicates it, right? But what I really want to do is say that it's going to be selected based on the name. And I want to show you this because if I was going to choose different, I want to be able to show that. So going back to the drawing board, select image, resource, Windows Forms from string.
The using statement is using system.resource.
This one, using the name of your project, dot properties. Picture box, image to image from my resources, dynamically set image from my resources. Let's do this one. Okay, so my.resources.resource manager.get object and the name of the object as string. Perfect. That's what I want. So resources.resource manager, right? So it's there. Resources.resource manager.get object. And the name of the object is a string, which is the race selected text box. Text. New string. And why isn't this working? McGiz says, cannot implicitly convert type object of system.drawing to image to explicitly conversion exists. Are you missing a cast? I might be. My dot resources, and my doesn't work. Let's see what it says here. Yeah, it is an image, but it's a background image, and I think I have to cast it as an image, right? Because I'm taking this object because it's an object, and I got to cast it as an image. So do I have to do something like image? Make sense? Maybe not. Because background image is of type image, right? And I'm casting this, what I'm getting back. Now this is okay for Halfelf, but I don't have a human, so it's gonna crap out on human. It's gonna say there's no image, right? So I need to get one more. Just to be clear, I'll say go over here and I'll say human elf, human D&D, and I'll get this guy. And I apologize to the ladies because it's just I'm getting a mail again. But I'll put it on the desktop and I'll say JPEG and save. And the other thing that I have a problem with is the way that it's being stored, Halfelf in my string value as incorrect. That would be bad too, right? I'll show you what I'm talking about in a second. It has to be exact, which is a problem. Okay, so notice on my desktop, now I have human, right? And I want to spell it correctly. The way I put it inside my code, human. Halfelf is here, but half-elf is what I may have put inside my code. So, I mean, these are issues. So notice that it's half-elf. Does half-elf, is that okay for a string? Yes, it is. But my resource, unfortunately, isn't that. So if I go to my my properties, I have to rename my resource. Here's my resource. I have to rename it so it matches the name of my object. Notice that it says, if I hover over it, it says the resource name Halfelf is not a valid identifier. How come? Because there is no dash. It's the same, right? So how do I fix this? And this is a long, convoluted way of doing it. I'm just gonna be honest, right? I gotta convert this, if I undo, if I gotta convert Halfelf to half-elf, because otherwise it won't come up, or half-elf to half-elf, one of the two, right? How do I do it? Two ways. One, I call it half-elf in my, to make it simple. My pull down is HalfSpace Elf, right? Or half-elf, right? And I kind of smash them together to kind of create that stuff, right? Because I have a string value with a space, I search for the space and take the resource in the which property? Of which? This? Are you talking about on the programmatically or in the RaceForm? Are you saying here? Yes.
I fixed it by just removing the resource and then renaming it on the picture and then adding it.
I like your thinking. Let's try that. I know these are tricks. I know. So you're removing it here, you're saying, right? Renaming it on the picture. I like your thinking.
You gotta exclude it in the solution.
Yes, yes. Because it's already added in there. So now I'm going to rename this thing to half-elf. Sure. And you're saying in here in the Solution Explorer, what we need to do is we need to exclude it as a resource, right? So I want to exclude this thing, actually delete this thing is what we want to do. And then we add it back in. So add resource from file. Click and open. And you're saying that's okay. That's bad. Right, see, then that fix, does that fix for you? Doesn't fix for me.
I don't have, I didn't have a dash in here. I had the problem where I didn't have all of it.
Oh.
So it did fix it.
Well, half_elf is different than half-elf, and it's different from HalfSpace Elf, right? It's all different, right? So I like your thinking, but that's not going to solve it, right? So how do I do it? Again, the easiest way, of course, would be to have everything we want inside of our designer. Half-elf would be HalfSpace Elf or half_elf, but obviously that's not what we want, right? And I'm trying to avoid, like Dan's suggestion, of doing it by using a case state. This is automatic. I can just like select the thing, whatever I'm selecting, it loads the resource. And if you're smart enough, and if you can rename things properly, which I guess I'm not smart enough today, then it'll be okay, right? So let's see if we can do that without being stuck too much on this thing. So again, what this would do is for the human part, it would work no problem, right? So let's add the human part first. I'll show you this one first. So let's suppose that I'm adding the human part in. I want to add that resource in there as well. So add from existing file, and we'll pull in human. There we go. There's my human, right? And now when we load, it'll load the human object in the background of my race by default. So I'll save this, and I'll run the file. And if I did it right, if I go next, it's going to load human. Notice that it's not the right scale, but it's okay. We'd have to rescale this so that it fits in a certain spot. And remember, I'm also just putting it in the background. I'm not assigning it to any kind of box, right? Now, here's the problem. If I click half-elf, it's going to go, meh. There's no half-elf because there is no half-elf that we can access, right? It just doesn't exist. So the other thing with these ones, with half-elf, if I was to go back to my code for a second. So this works, but not for half-elf. And also it will give me half-elf. Is what it's looking for. And I could take this text box before it goes in here and strip out all the spaces. I could do that, whatever it is. So it doesn't matter what it is. Strip the spaces out of a string, right? And after I strip the spaces out, then I have that object And then I can make sure that all my resources have no spaces. They're like Halfelf, no spaces. Now the question is, how do I strip the spaces off? I'd have to recreate my resource because my resource is incorrect, right? How do I strip the spaces with the string? Is there a string format that I could do, or some kind of string command that I can take a string, create a new string, strip the spaces from it? So really quickly, strip spaces from string, right? And we'll do C# to make sure it's correct. C#. There we go. .NET. And it's about asking what it is. I could do this too with long convoluted way of trim. But what I want to do is I want to get rid of all the spaces. That's not a great solution. Is there another one? The trim method will do it, but I want to trim on a particular object. So it says removes all leading and trailing white spaces characters from the current string object. Yeah, that's nice, but it's leading and trailing. I want middle. I want all spaces. To remove. Sure. To it. Here's the solution. Okay, replace so regular expression. I could use a regular expression. Replace whatever it is with no spaces. So I search for spaces and I replace it. I could do that way too. That is probably the easiest way to do it, but you'd have to understand what I'm looking at, right? So who here have you guys done any regular expressions before? Yes, yeah, we did it together. Huh? So now what they've done here is the first part of the replace, we're replacing whatever that's inside this object with, we're searching, as an example, for any spaces that are at least 0 or more, right? That's what we're looking for, and replacing it with nothing. That's what's happening here, right? So, and notice XML is the thing that we're looking for. So if I was to do the same thing here, and if I was going to type this in, if I go regex dot replace, and now you see that regex has an underscore or underline. We need to add that in as a functionality. And if you know, we have to use the using system text regular expressions namespace. And now that we do this, we can add in what the string input, whatever the string input is, and the pattern, right? So the string input would be this, race selected text box dot text, right? Just gonna take this out for now. And I want to replace it with the pattern that we just saw, which is this pattern, which is, this is a quick and dirty, right, to do it this way. There's the pattern. Sorry. Windows, sorry, Mac to Windows. There we go. Oh, and I want to take this part, this whole piece right here, copy it, and put it in here, which should give us the regular expression that we want to remove any spaces from the objects. So that strips the spaces from our strings, if there's any such spaces at all. Okay. So that strips spaces. So that means that if I go back to my form, I will. I'll give you 1 second. I guess I'm gonna go back to my form for a second, which is my RaceForm. Here it is. Hold on a second. Is that good? So remember what the what's the @ symbol mean? Does anyone know what this means? This means that use this as raw text. That's what it means, right? Use it as raw text. So it says whatever this is between the quotations, use it as raw text, right? And then this is the pattern. So we're looking for spaces that are 0 or more, 0 or 1 spaces, anywhere inside of our string, the selected text box, and replace whatever we find with nothing, right? With take the spaces out, basically. Yes? No, I have to go in. Yeah, you're right. I have to go into my select in my box, and instead of dash, I'll say HalfSpace Elf, which would be the answer, right? So that'll be the answer to that. So what I mean by that is, that's a good question. If I go to my design, I'm going to go back into here in my edit items try and be smart. I'll just do one of these. I could search for dashes as well because they're all dashes, but we might have a space like Dragonborn, right? So half elf, half ogre, half orc. Is it correct right now? No. I want dashes, but I'm not going to spend time doing that right now. I've spent enough time doing this in this little crazy example. So this is this, half elf, and so on. And then it's going to take the space away. Okay, now I got to match up the my properties here, right? So this is incorrect. Get rid of this. And I got to go into my Solution Explorer, and I get rid of half elf, this one, and rename it on my system so there's no spaces. And now we're going to put it back. By the way, you can also drag and drop, but we're going to use the add resources method. And we're going to pull down half elf. There it is. And so now HalfSpace Elf will be half elf. And now this should work. Let's see. And then I'll show you the whole solution. So next, human, half elf. Hey. Lots of work to avoid doing a case statement, right? Or a switch statement with cases, right? And by the way, if I was really going to do this, like I said, I probably would align the picture, modify the picture so that it's the same size. All the pictures would be the exact same size as opposed to what it is right here. So that it's not skewed, I'd probably put it inside of some kind of picture box in the background, right, to control it better. Because if I put it like this, it's going to try and repeat it across my background, which I don't want. I don't want that to happen, right? I want it maybe on this side only, as an example, and I can do that by creating a picture box that it goes into. All right. So how do I do that? Picture boxes, which you have on your assignment, right? So if I go to RaceForm, and instead of doing it on the background, I want to add a picture box. So it's going to be another object, toolbox. So here's a picture box. And what I want to do is I want to layer the picture box so that it goes behind the other ones. How do I do that? And how do I make it so that these ones appear above this one? If I do this, it covers it, right? But if I right click, I should be able to send to back like this, right? And now I can align this thing, my picture box, as an example, so that it has the right proportions, right? There it is. There's so it's going to come up in the background behind race selected, right? Now I want to name this picture box, so I'm going to go back to Solution Explorer, and I want to go to Properties and pin the properties up, right? So if I click the picture box, here it is. It can't be called Picture Box 1. It's got to be called Race Picture Box. And I know Rich said to put Picture Box Race the other way around, because then I can say Picture Box, and all the picture boxes will come up, or all the text boxes, text box, whatever the thing is called. Right, that's how he does it. I'm not adverse to that suggestion at all, actually. But we'll picture box. All right, so there's my race picture box. Right now, it doesn't come with an image; it's empty. But I want to, instead of doing the background image, which is here, the background image, this background image, I want to say picture box, so race picture box, right, dot image is equal to the resources that I pick. Now, the other thing I gotta sort is the race picture box. How is it going to show the image? Is it going to be skewed? Is it going to try and fix it? I mean, there's ways of modifying this. So if I run this thing again and I go next, notice that the race picture box is just showing this white space. Yes?
Sorry, how did you get in the background?
You right click on the race picture box and you go to send to back. So what I mean by this is, if I go back to my race picture box, my race form, here's my race picture box. If I right click, you can change the order, send to back, bring to front. You can do that, right? Doesn't give you a lot of selection, to be honest with you. But what I want to do here is change the properties of my picture box, right? Now here is this little smart arrow again, right? And if I go here, notice that the size mode is normal, right? There's a bunch of size modes. One is stretch image, auto size, I don't want to do, right? Zoom is the other one, right? If I click zoom and kind of save that one, and if I start it again and go next, then we have the right size. And if I choose Halfelf, then it changes. See? If I choose something else, it goes blank, right? Human, Halfelf. Questions around this? Let's go back and review, right? Because I think we need to see this again. So again, I've changed it from the background image, and I've added a picture box object, right? Here it is. I've named the picture box object in properties. I've named it to race picture box, right? And it has an image property as well as a size mode property, and I've changed the size mode property to zoom. If you change this to normal, right, that's why you didn't see it. It would just reflect whatever the picture is, the full size picture, which, because my human picture is much larger than my Halfelf, you only see the top left corner, which is just white, right? If I do stretch image, it would stretch to fill the picture box, which would be totally ugly, right? Because it would just like skew the image and pull it in all directions to make it fit. Auto size means the picture box would fit the image. So it would be a massive picture box for my human and a smaller picture box for my Halfelf. I don't want that either, because it would change my layout, which is not what I want. And center image would just like center it inside the middle, and I don't recommend that either. The best one in our case is zoom. Okay, so that's one. Second, in our code, if I go back to our code for my RaceForm, right? And it's this one. What I've changed here is the following. I still do the regular expression all in one line, but instead of going to this dot background image, it's race picture box dot image, the image property of my race picture box. I'm assigning to this the object I'm getting from my resource manager. Okay, will you have to do this for the exam? Well, even if I ask you to do it, you have the code. I'm going to put it up on GitHub, so it's not like you're going to search for it somewhere. So if I ask you to do something like that, like this crazy, it's going to be somewhere where you can find it, or I might just give it to you, right? Only if I want you to make a special effect work out or something like that. Chances are this kind of stuff will be bonus. It won't be something that I'll ask you to do because we just did it today. And like I said, I just kind of whipped it up, right? It wasn't something that I was thinking about. Questions around this stuff? Okay, so we've got this information, right? And again, if I wanted to do all of these things, like if I was going to go into my ability form, or sorry, my race form, and if I wanted to do them for each of the races, I would just download all the images for the races and then include them in my resource folder, right? In my the resource part of my project. And then when I click on something, it'll just align it into the text box, into the picture box for me, right? That's the quick of it. Yes. It can. And so the way to do that, if you wanted to cut it down, how would I cut it down is what you're asking, which I like. I like your question. So let's go back to raceform.cs. So how do I cut this one down so it's not as crazy is what you're asking? Well, we can create a variable. Two ways to create a variable. I could create one that says and it's what I'm really trying to do is getting the object that matches the image. So what we're saying is my image string, right? That's what I want. Make it a string. We'll call it image string. Is equal to this. Right? That's what I want. And then I put inside there, I put image string. Then I put a semicolon here, and that might cut it in half for you, make it a little easier to read. There. So what this is, I'm saying, here, look, get the image string, create an image string. And here what I'm doing is I'm looking at the race selected text box.text, using a regular expression to take the spaces out and assign the result to the image string. And then take the image string and pop it into this line, which allows me to use the resource manager to select a resource and assign it, after casting it as an image, to my race picture box.image property. Whew. Make sense? Yes. Sorry, I like to put it all in one. You're right though, I should probably have cut it back into two. It's my sore throat. Blame it on that, right? Okay, any other comments or issues with this method that you could foresee? One, I can tell you the positives. Positives are I save a lot of code, right? Because instead of me doing an if else, or a switch with a bunch of case statements, right? I can do it in 1 line or 2 lines, right? That's positive. Negative, because they're hard-coded, is the problem. If I ever change the way, like I just changed my Halfelf, my race to HalfSpace Elf instead of half-Elf or whatever, you know what? I have to do a lot more code if I want to differentiate between the 2 types. So for example, Dragonborn, right? If I was going to do that, compared to half-Elf, I'd have to do this regular expression twice, depending on if it's one or the other, right? So check to see if there's any dashes. If there are, take them out. Check to see if there's spaces. If there are, take them out, right? And do that twice. So do the regular expression twice. And I can basically do my image string is equal to whatever it is, and then do another replace of my image string. And instead of looking for spaces, I'm going to look for dashes. That's what I'm looking for. So that's another line that we're missing. So that's one problem. The other problem is that in my resource, one thing I don't like about this is typically be named this, right? These things. And if these references to what's inside my Solution Explorer in here, like this, right? In my resources, you can see that the references are right in here, JPEGs, right? If these change or remove, so just these are the notes about this stuff, right? And that's not going to change whether you use a switch with a case or whether you put the stuff in there. By the way, with your assignment 3, I've asked you to do this. I say, go there, when you click on your movie, display the movie. Here's the solution, or one possible solution. You could use switch statement with case. And I would accept a switch statement with case if you can do the regular expression path. Yes? Jesus Christ. I can't answer that because we're on YouTube, right? But actually, no, probably never. No one ever. Actually, probably no one heard you. So it's yeah, it's okay. Yes, it's fine. Yes, that would be very interesting. But I don't know how you would include that in your application, right? Anyone else have any questions around assignments? So let's recap before we end for the day. I want to talk about a couple things. So next week, remember that your exam. Just a reminder, your exam is going to happen right at the beginning. I'm probably going to do a short true-false multiple choice matching thing, which will be closed book. And the reason why it's closed book is because I'm not using the PowerPoint presentations, really. I'm going to ask you to take a look at some of the stuff, review the things that you know. If it's not something that I've talked about, like, for example, I might ask you a question like, if I want to put an object, like, you know, as an example, from my toolbox, right, on my form, how do I put it on my form? And it might be one option might be drag and drop, you know, right click and paste, right? Copy paste, you know, and another one might be instead of drag and drop, double click, right? And then the last one might be all of the above. Which one is it, right? Might be all of the above, right? Let's try it out, right? So for example, if I was going to go into my toolbox, and you guys should know this stuff because if you use it, if I go right click, if I copy, take a look. So there's 3 ways I just talked about, right? And if I go to over here, look it turns into a button. If I click onto it, bam, it works, right? So I could do it that way. That's one way of doing it, right? And we'll delete that button. We'll delete that button. And the other way is double clicking, right? There's the button. That's the second way, right? And the third way, sorry, my Mac. And the third way is drag and dropping, right? Those are all 3 ways of putting it in. Is there any other ways that you can think of? What was that? Copy an existing one. That's another way, right? What other ways can we do it? Can we also, you know, is there a way of doing it through the menu, right? By copying and pasting. Yes, there is, right? There's lots of ways. And so you have to think about it if it's possible, and you should think about, you know, all this stuff. If it's possible and if you can figure it out, if you can puzzle it out, you'll be fine, right? What if you can't puzzle it out? An example of it is something that you haven't done before. Well, then I'm not going to ask you about it, chances are, right? I'm not going to go and try and sit there and go, so for a numeric up-down, we never talked about numeric up-downs. How does it work? right? I'm not going to ask you that question. I'm not going to try and, you know, trick you on the exam. It's not about that. It's about, you know, tell me what you know. I'm going to ask you about things that are common elements that you should know how to use. What happens what are the common elements or properties of a button? The text property, that's a property that for the button, right? What other properties does the button have? The font property, right? Size property, position property, all those things. If you look at regular buttons or most controls, they're very similar. For example, if I click on arg, if I click on arg, if I click on you know the label, and if I go to properties, right, and if I click onto that, and you can see that it has a number of properties. The label and the button and all the other things have a lot of similar properties. For example, locked. What does this locked property mean? It locks the layout. So if I go to false and I go to true, now I can't move this label around anymore. I can't drag and drop this. So it prevents me from doing that if I have a problem when I'm laying things out. You should know those basics. And the way to practice this is pull down some common stuff we've talked about, look at the properties, and that's the way to study. What can I do with my buttons? You should know how to do those things. Build some basic things, and if you've done assignment 1 and assignment 2, you'll be fine for the multiple choice true false. And the same thing goes with your project that you're going to build. I've already built out, I'll tell you right now, one part of what you're doing on the exam. You're going to see the character generator again, right? Just guaranteed. I'm not going to get you to recreate this part. I might get you to do something like this. Hint, hint. Take the stuff that I got on from my race and the stuff that I have for my abilities and put it on a final form. That might be something I get you to do, which is something, hint, hint, that I would practice, right? And if you know how to do those things, you'll do golden on the exam, right? If you don't know how to do those things and you look at the exam and you're going to break your head over it after I just told you that, there's a problem, right? Something you haven't done. You haven't practiced enough. You haven't done your assignments, you know, those kind of things. So that's the exam part. Remember that assignment 2 is due tomorrow night at midnight. Please do that. It will help you with the exam next week, right? If you haven't done it, if you haven't finished it, they're all the piece parts for assignment 1 and assignment 2. I will put as much of that stuff on the exam to test you. Things like common elements, buttons, labels, you know, those kind of things, and calculations. You might have a calculation or two. For example, what if I asked you to create your ability form, right? I want you to modify ability form. This could be something that I put on the exam, and I'm just going to pull this down. So I'm going to go to my ability form. I want you to modify the ability form so that you create a control that I could pick any 2 abilities and swap them. Can you thinking about ways to do that? Or I want you to only allow 1 ability. You have 2 points, right, for your you know, inside your ability form. Or 4 points or whatever it's going to be, a number of points, and you can assign them anywhere you want to a maximum of 20. How would you do those kind of things? You should be able to manipulate the form enough to do that kind of stuff. Like example a bit, if I rolled, you know, here's an example. I'm rolling a character, and I have a 17 as an example, and I can put on up to 2 points to a maximum of 20. So this would be fine. It'll be 19. But if it was already an 18, or something else, I can't put all 4 points on this one ability, you know, as an example. I might ask you to do things like that on the character sheet, right? Things to manipulate what we have, right? Or calculate the total number of points. How much total number of points are aligned here? If I give you a point ratio, for example, if I say something like 8 is equal to 1, 9 is equal to 2, 10 is equal to 3, something like that. How do you calculate the number of points? But that's the most I would give you. It would be nothing that you haven't seen or done before, like doing calculations, you know, modifying existing forms. I might ask you to do things like you can't click next unless something is done here on the form. Like you can't click next until you assign the extra points. How do you do that? Disable the button, right? If these points aren't aligned, you can't click next. When the points are assigned, then the button is enabled. Like these simple things like that, I might ask you to do, right? It'll be something in the vein of that. It'll be nothing that you can't do in a space of the time that you have. Okay. Any other questions? Because I want to help you. I'm trying to help you out to give you some hints, you know, of what to study, right? You guys are all good. You guys are golden, right? You guys are beautiful. You guys got no questions. This is the easiest course ever, right? All right. I want to hear that. I'm good. I'm happy with that because it is a beginning course. So please don't expect the exam to be something trickier or something out of this world. Okay, that's it for me for today. If you have any questions around assignment 2 before I go, please see me at the end, right? Otherwise, I'll see you guys next week. Remember that the exam starts sharp at 4 o'clock.